Hey everybody, Dan Shinder here on Drunk Talk TV with yet another first-time offender, first-time hazing experience with me here on Drunk Talk TV, the legendary Michael Shrieve. Michael, I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for taking time to join us all the way from Seattle, Washington. And folks, I'm at home in my office in Globe, Arizona. Michael, welcome.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Man, there's so much to talk about, but I have to share this graphic and talk about this first. This is Michael's new album. It just came out a few days ago as we're recording this on May 28th. It came out on the 24th. And this is just a tremendous piece of work. It's called Drums of Compassion. It's described as a declaration of the pure intentions of musicians, a prayer to compassion. We kind of need that these days, right? That need hasn't gone away. And an invitation to explore the depth of human connection through the universal language of music. And folks, if you look at the front on the left and the back of the artwork of the packaging there, you can see these other legendary musicians that you probably gave like $5 to join you on this amazing project. Probably didn't take much, right? And it was recorded, and was it produced with you by Trey Gunn and recorded at his studio?
No. Trey plays on one of the tracks or two of the tracks.
That's it. Okay.
And then, 15 years later, we're putting it out on his label. So that's a very cool thing. But no, this record I've been working on for literally 20 years,
Yeah.
And so it's a very personal record. It's very personal why it's taken 20 years. And I was working on it up until the last hour that, we had to get the files out to make the deadline for the release,
Right.
So I've been messing with it for 20 years.
Wow.
But there's a reason for it. And I feel nothing but sort of grateful to get this record out now. I have no regrets that it took that long. It seems like the perfect time in my life. And I guess it's got to be like a fine wine, it just,
right.
It was what it was. And now it feels like perfect to put it out. And I'm really proud of it. And I feel it's really appropriate for me at my age, this point in my life where I am in relationship to the world, in relationship to music and what it means to me on a personal level. And, how I look at music as a healing force.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, and so this is a real honest record for me, and it's not a long record. It's only like 35 minutes because I came up in the 70s, 60s, right? And so there was vinyl, and the maximum time you could have is 20 minutes on each side.
Right.
And so then and even preferably it was like 18 minutes, because it makes the it makes the sound of the disc greater because the grooves are thicker. And so the vinyl, that's why the vinyl sounds so great. But for me, the thing is I have a lot more music of this, but to me, just because you can put 75 minutes of music on a CD doesn't mean you should,
Right.
It's not an all-you-can-eat buffet. It's a fine meal.
Right. When I got this to listen to, I was a little displaced. We had a crazy thing happen in this little city that I live in up in the mountains where the internet and phone system crashed, and I freaked out, and I gathered my computers and hard drives, and I stayed in a hotel for a week down in Mesa in the Phoenix area to get my work done. And Steve, you met Steve before we started. Steve had sent me the link to all the files, but I didn't get or I didn't take the time to read the press release. I like to just hit stuff cold. I didn't want a preconceived notion of any kind. And I really didn't know what to expect, but I got to tell you, it was first playing. I was sitting and working and my phone was over there and it was playing from my phone. And when it started, I have to tell you, my head went, I mean, if I could give this album one word, folks, just as a hint or a clue, the music is absolutely enchanting, and it creates, for me anyways, it creates such a theater of the mind, and sonically it's amazing. I forgot to bring my computer speakers, so I went to Walmart, bought some really cheap speakers, and I was just telling Steve, yeah, like $20 speakers. But I was telling Steve the other day that when I was in the hotel room and listening, the speakers were like down here, but I heard sound coming from like full spectrum, from way on 6 feet of either side of me. So I can't wait to actually get the physical product. I'm a physical product kind of guy, and put that on and just be enveloped by it. Will anything come of the other music that you have from this work that isn't on this product?
Most likely.
Great.
I would say yes. You know, I also want to add that the first piece on the record, which was with Olatunji and Jack DeJohnette and Airto and Trey Gunn, and it's just magical. And also this new percussionist I found on Instagram from Germany, and so I just found this guy, and it blew my mind. And his name is Stefan Moss.
Yeah.
And his grooves were just anyway. I ended up putting him on everything, and plus stuff that I have still yet to come out. You know.
Yeah.
But this record in particular, you know, it's special to me. It's really a sort of a spiritual statement at this point in my life. You know, it's honest, and it's unapologetic, and it's where I want to be spiritually. Doesn't mean I have to live in this zone all the time, but I wanted to make this statement of just like trust it. 35 minutes, and just put the headphones on and let it take you there. You know.
That's perfect.
Yeah, it's like that.
That's awesome. I have a question about the process, Michael. You worked on it for 20 years. So basically, you went through probably some life changes from your mid 50s to your mid 70s during the course of this. Did anything about not the ethos of the work, but did anything about the way you created it or presented it or decided to track it, did any of that morph, or is this exactly or close to what you envisioned 20 years ago when you started it, or did life changes have an influence on it?
Yeah, I think that probably life changes have an influence on everything, except that I think my vision of this project was very clear. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that I didn't panic in 20 years. I just, I mean, the way it came out now is just, to me, just perfect. And so if it took 20 years, it is. But there's other things that are involved with the reason that it took 20 years. And a lot of that is, real kind of personal stuff that I was going through. I had a vision, one night about what kind of music I wanted to listen to at 2 a.m, after I come home from being out. And I'm a drummer, so how can I make beautiful music that I'd like to listen to? Because I don't want to hear some backbeat stuff when I come home after, going to check out music. I want to hear like choral music or something beautiful.
Yeah.
And turn it off, and then enter into a new space. So that was the challenge. I want to make a record that I can do it, but play at 2 a.m. And I'm a drummer, so how am I going to do that? So
well, you figured it out.
Yeah, I figured it out, and not only that, but I didn't lose the vision in 20 years.
That's neat. Yeah,
I didn't go all over the place, this and that, but what happened was I was always kind of adding stuff, taking stuff away. I tried so many different musicians on this that are not even on the final product, and really beautiful, kind of well-known musicians. And so so I went through all this stuff, but I also realized that there's got to be some reason why I'm not putting it out, you know. And so I was going to see this shrink that came for free with my new insurance, and I started talking about this record, and I was trying to say to her, like, what's my problem? You know, am I procrastinating, or why am I not releasing this music? Because I'm certain it's blocking the new stuff that's supposed to be coming right now. And so it was a very interesting process where I talked it through, and I like in an instant, I got it. I got it. I just realized, okay, here's why I haven't put it out, you know?
Yeah.
And so,
Interesting.
and I realized that what it was it is that I really loved it. I loved the project, you know, it was really personal to me. I loved it. And I was afraid of putting it out because it was so important to me. You know, you put something out and it's like nobody cares about anything anymore. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I mean, it might be good enough just for me to have made it without sharing it, and then people just saying whatever, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so I was kind of okay with that, meaning that I was a bit precious about this music.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I understood what my problem was, then I realized, okay, time to put it out. You know.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
along with age and the course of life morphing over those 20 years, there's something else that morphed. How did the shifts and changes and progressions in technology of recording equipment and processes change your approach during it? Because I'm sure from the time you started till the last stuff you either tracked or mixed, technology had changed. How did that affect what we end up with now?
Well, for this particular record, it had nothing to do with it, because this was all acoustic,
Oh,
you know, live. There's no, except for synthesis and technology of maybe being able to use a percussionist in Germany, you know, without
trading
being in the
files.
same room. And and so, but no, this is a really organic record.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one in particular. But Dan, I've got new music that I'm doing every day that is completely all about technology. And you
Oh,
know,
wow.
I mean, I'm actually spent all day today doing electronic setup, like where it's all like it's using the new software and some other new products and this and that, and I've been doing that, started in the pandemic. So my stuff is super electronic, but it's soulful, and you know, it's completely different than Drums of Compassion, which is of
Yeah.
course another side of me. Um, but yeah, so don't get me started on technology and AI and all that, because
Yeah.
I can go there. Yeah.
That's cool. And folks, if you haven't noticed in the text of this post, wherever you're seeing it, there is a link to go get the album. And it's like available from 9 different sources, 9 different ways. And I can't say enough about this. It's truly a work of art. But I want to go back, way back. Why drums, and when did you start? And what was that spark, Michael? And when was that?
7th grade, um, after I'd gotten kicked out of a Catholic elementary school, I went to a public school for the first, well, not for the first time. And I don't know, I was either a comedian or I was banging on the desk. I got sent to the principal's office and I got scolded. And on the way back to the room, I passed the band room, and the percussion section was right at the door. And just like the way everything looked and the drums and the, you know, I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. And so I was there so long, I got in trouble by the time I got back. But that day, I went down to the local rug store, like in a small mall,
Hmm.
and I got 3 carpet samples, and then I went to the music store and got some drumsticks, and that's the day I started
Wow.
playing. Yeah,
That's great. Who were some of your early influences?
my early influences, were like Gene Krupa,
Hmm.
um, Sonny Payne, like jazz guys, and
Oh
then
yeah.
in the rock area, like Ringo, of course. Um, what's his name? The Young Rascals.
Oh yeah.
What's his name? I'm so ashamed that I forget his
Yeah.
name.
It's now I gotta look it up. Hold on, I'll actually look it up real quick. It
Yeah,
was
it's just an
and
age thing.
folks feel free to chime in if you know. Oh, it was Dino
Dino
Danelli.
Danelli.
Yeah,
Dino
it was
Danelli.
Dino. Yeah.
Yeah, Dino
Yeah.
was cool. I mean, I was influenced by like Ray Charles music and that drummers and
Hmm.
James Brown. I mean, I aspired to be a jazz drummer, but James Brown, that was a whole nother thing. Every time he came out with a single, I was all over that. I was just all over it. And I
Yeah.
would go and try to play in a club and play it, like really like the same day it came out type of thing.
Yeah.
Even though I was white and I was like, I wasn't old enough to get in the club, but somehow they let me in, and I used to love to play those things.
Oh, that's awesome. So Clyde Stubblefield breaks and all that groove, and that dude was grooving
Oh
so
my
much so that James Brown had to wear a cape. That's why he wore a cape, because the groove was so cool. And talk about as you got older and you started playing in bands, and then you get picked up by Carlos Santana. One of my favorite, and I watch a lot of music, especially, being the Drum Talk TV guy, we get a lot of submissions, and I love watching music concerts and performances and things like that. Santana live at Tanglewood 1970 is one of my top 3, all tied, by the way, top 3 concert films ever. And that solo that you do in that was obviously shortly after, not long after Woodstock. And I like this one better at
Yeah,
Tanglewood. Not to minimize what you did at Woodstock as the
I
second
like this
youngest.
much better. I like
Do
this
you?
one far, far better. I always tell people there's this one and then Key 1973. That was probably
Oh yeah.
like the pinnacle of my solo stuff on film. Woodstock is exciting to watch. I mean, even when I watch it, if I just listen to the audio,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, man, what's to do, but what's the big deal? But when I watch the video, I totally get it. It's so
Yeah.
intense, and we were so intense, and I was so young, and
Yeah.
I was so intense. So the whole package is what really. But Tanglewood was really intense. I watched it this morning. Somehow, somebody posted it and sent it to me. Like I need that.
Yeah.
But I happened to click on it and I watched it, and it was really intense.
It
And
is. That
yeah.
whole concert it's so
The
good.
whole, you know why that was, Dan? It's because Miles Davis was watching us.
Is that right?
We
So it
were
was
playing
like,
at Tanglewood. We were opening for Miles Davis.
oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, and
Wow.
so you see Carlos is looking around like it's his band and this and that. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's so conscious of Miles being there, and but so was I. But we just, it was a good gig. It was a good gig.
Yeah.
Miles Davis, we saw him drive up in his bright yellow Lamborghini, like all he did was have his bag with a trumpet in it. That's it. No backpack, no nothing.
Wow. That's
And
so
so,
cool.
yeah, we played really well that day.
And the 3 of you as a percussion ensemble, I've never seen anything else that good when it comes to drums and percussionists playing. There's a lot of great ones. There's a lot of great ones when we
Yeah,
look at
there
bands
are.
like Chicago, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, a lot of them. But that combination is just
Yeah.
epic. It really is.
Yeah, for our scene, that rock
Yeah.
kind of scene, yeah, definitely. I mean, we were pretty authentic. I mean,
Yeah.
we were not authentic like authentic, Cuban or authentic salsa. We were. I mean, all those people could relate to it, but we were different. Our groove was different because I didn't play Latin music. I've never, all the grooves that I played with Santana while they're Latin music,
Yeah.
none of it's Latin music that I'm playing. It's like jazz. I
Yeah.
swing it, or I just play the groove. You know what I mean? Like a groove's a groove,
Yeah.
and you don't want to mess with it. But then we did other things where I started to bring my influences of Jack DeJohnette and Tony Williams and Elvin into those pop tunes, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and go across the bar lines and that's when a lot of the band left and went and started Journey,
Yeah. Yeah. With Greg and eventually Neil.
Yeah.
One of the things, Michael, that also blew me away about that concert was it really gave me pause to realize, wait, this is 1970, and there are already that many, if I could use the word hits or singles or recognizable
Yes.
pieces of music that 40, 50 years later still are like, did you guys have any idea of the stay power of what you were doing at that time, or know you'd be doing it, into your 40s, let alone your 50s or 70s? Like, what was the headspace about that at that
Well,
time?
I mean, I always thought I'd be making music for a long time,
Mhm.
As far as the hits and stuff like that, I will say that, it was all real honest. I mean, that stuff was, I mean, I was listening to jazz and, but I was very aware of that. Like we were making like some hit music too. And I was completely into it.
Right.
I mean, I brought Black Magic Woman to the band,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
That's
so
crazy.
I was, very aware that we were popular, and I didn't mind that at all. But when it started expanding a bit, that made me even more excited. But I was completely into the sound of the band and making hit records if we needed to. We were always going to do something intense on the record, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
We weren't like, we didn't think of ourselves as like just being entertainers and stuff, but we did have hit records. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then in the mid 70s, you were in an amazing band called Go, with Stomu Yamashita, Steve Winwood, Al Di Meola, Klaus Schultz. What a crazy lineup, on paper. It kind of looks weird in a way, but
Yeah.
the two albums, the two studio albums that you put out, Go in 1976, and I love the title Go To, TOO. I
Yeah.
love that. And
Yeah.
just a year later, and then a live album. That was one of those projects, I think of UK, and they only had two studio albums and a live album, but what a mark they made. This was that same kind of thing where it's just two studio albums, a live album, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
that have a huge impact on you, being in that band and playing with those guys and recording the music that you did? And even though it was short lived, where does that sit in your acumen of how you rate what you've done and what you enjoyed?
Well, there's a little bit of a backstory, if you don't mind me telling it,
Sure, please.
because after Woodstock and my subsequent task of doing a drum solo every night, which I didn't mind. I was into it, but it made me constantly like listen to a ton of drummers, most of them jazz drummers, like Jack DeJohnette and Tony Williams, of that day, and of course Elvin. And Elvin and I were friends, and I knew all these guys. I knew Tony, and I knew. I mean, Tony and I were kind of the same ball game where we both got successful really young.
Yeah,
And he didn't disrespect the music that we were making, and so I think we felt kind of a bond where we were really young, but we were sincere about the music, and we were successful. And so, I mean, Same with Lenny White. I mean, Lenny and I, like 19, we probably met, and and he'd come to my house in San Francisco and stay. And I remember the first time he brought this kid who just joined the band named Al Demiola,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of beautiful. Like there's history to all of these things. It makes me proud, man, to come up in that time period.
Must have been an amazing time to come up in
It
music.
was an amazing time. It was
Yeah.
amazing. The day after Woodstock, Miles Davis went into the studio to record Bitches Brew.
Wow. The day after Woodstock. Wow. That's crazy.
That's what Lenny told me. It's like, I mean, how's that for an energy force?
Yeah. Wow. That'll never happen again. And Woodstock 2 was not it happening again, with all due respect. But that's just, and for those who don't know, whether because of age or it's a generational thing or because of just lack of digging into it, Michael was the second youngest person to play at Woodstock. You had recently turned 20. What was Woodstock like to a 20-year-old drummer playing in a band like Santana and acts like The Who, Jimi Hendrix, Janet? I mean, we can go on and on and on. And you guys, like, what was that like? Did you get it? Did you know what the F word was going on?
Well, I mean, we were touring. Bill Graham, like, coached and guided us on this journey to Woodstock, and he got us on the bill. And then he sat us down and said, "There's going to be something that's happening, and it's going to change your guys' lives. Just so you know, you're going to get a big head. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. I'm going to try to help you through it, but we're going to be booked on this thing, and we're going to do the whole summer preparing for it, like playing big concerts, because we were just still doing California. And so we did the Dallas Pop Festival. We did the Miami Pop Festival. We did Atlanta. So he was preparing us with these big audiences in these big crowds with festivals to play. And I mean, we were playing to good crowds, but they were different. This is a different ball game. And so we did that all summer. And then I think 2 weeks before Woodstock, we rented a house to chill from the rest of the summer, and then set up the instruments in the house. And so we were playing. And so we were there to play Woodstock, and we took 2 weeks off prior. And then as the time went on, you started hearing about it more and more. And then when it got really close, when the highways closed down, and it just became a big news piece, everything changed, So for my age, I don't know why it is, but I was so kind of like, things were going well, and I was open, and I just thought, this is like, I wasn't freaking out at all,
Yeah.
So, because we were a tight band, we had each other, and that's why I said this thing I said when I spoke at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I said, upon just joining the band and moving in with them, I said, I quickly saw that this was no hippie love thing. This was like a street gang, and its weapon is music.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think that was really, like, we were like that. We were like, we were like brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How interesting. You were in so many
This
great
is
bands.
so odd, man. Michael Shrieve, Glass Menagerie, B.B. King, Etta James. I mean, I might have played with, B.B. King and Etta James once at a club, but kind of of all the people I played with, that's kind of a weird sort of.
Yeah, I listed that because I wanted people to know, and I wanted to ask you about, I think you played with each of those just like once or twice, like you say, and you
Yes.
were quite young.
Quite
And
young.
yeah, and you seem not just now, but the way you just described what it was like at Woodstock, and you weren't freaked out. You have so much humility, and it sounds like that's simply how you're wired, because a lot of people, having done what you did, I mean, even just those two names right there, BB King, Etta James, when they were really young, it's pretty easy, especially for creatives, musicians, for something like that to go to their head. Did this have to do with your upbringing? Is it just your biology?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Like, what, they don't have a big head?
Yeah, just that you're down to earth, and that didn't, as far as I know, at the time
Yeah.
didn't, you didn't go through some arc, right? This is just who you are.
Yeah, I was young, I was playing at a club in East Palo Alto, California, Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was called Nairobi Lounge, and I was in the house band, and so
Mm-hmm.
people would come in through like Etta James or BB, and so
Right.
we had a band that we would do a set, and we had a singer called Shell Nitro.
Oh yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shell Nitro, So I was into all that R&B stuff, like, big time.
That's awesome. And when these people would come through, was it just like, oh my gosh, look who's here? Or was it just like, okay, BB King, okay, what are we playing? Was it business as usual, or was it like, oh wow,
no,
look who we get to play?
all that period, those people were really important to me. I didn't take it lightly,
Yeah.
No, I wasn't too cool for school.
Right.
It was an honor. I mean, it's a very different situation. I was the only white person in the whole club, and it was, and to me, it was like home,
Yeah.
It's like
I get that, because my wife is black and we have 3 dogs and 2 cats, and I'm the only white guy here, so I get that. Hey, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always
I
so growing up, I always felt really comfortable in situations where there are African American musicians. My friends in college, or this and that. My first girlfriend. It's sort of like, so it's only right that I'm in a band like Santana, where there's a militant black, a Nicaraguan, a Puerto Rican, a
right.
Mexican, and 2 white boys.
Yeah. And it's a testament to, just humility, but also, just rolling with what you got and making the best of what you can do. And Danielle Major, I put her comment up on the screen. Hi, Danielle. She says, how'd you get the opportunity to work with them? But I guess that was from just being in the house band, right? And they would come through, as you mentioned.
So, she's asking about Santana.
No, I think she's asking about, go ahead and clarify that. I presume that she was asking about the others that you mentioned with the house band. But Danielle, if you're still there, let us know. But go ahead. I know a little bit about the story, very little with Santana, but how did Carlos pick you up, and what was the conversation? Hey, come live in this house, and we're going to do this thing, or what was that like? What was the convincer? Was it a jam session?
It's a whole story, and it's a good one. I told this story at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It was like, I told it really quick, and just like, I didn't have anything written down or anything, but I told the story of, this is how I got into Santana, because I know you all want to know, how did this young white kid get in there with these, just Mexican and this and this,
Right.
And I knew everybody wanted to know, right? And so I told the whole story. I mean, it's everybody in the business there, you know what I mean? Like everybody. And I told the whole story about me going up to, I was living with my parents, and I was living with my parents, but this is after I had already spent a period by myself up in the Haight-Ashbury district, and trying to connect with the music up there. And it was not anything like you would think. It was kind of dirty and nasty. And as I was practicing every day, my mantra was, I'm not a hippie, not a hippie, not a hippie. I'm not a hippie. Not a hippie. Anyway,
Yeah.
so but the music scene was around there. I would jam with Elvin Bishop, who lived around the corner. I
Oh,
would go over to Jefferson Airplanes, like they had a mansion over there, and I would go over there. And I was before Santana, I was going to be in Jefferson Airplane.
oh, wow.
And that's a whole story about somehow me going over there and jamming, and I got to be good friends with Jack and Yorma, and
Mhm.
I just had a nice chat with Jack the other day, and that's a whole other story. It's a
Okay, we'll
great
do a
story.
segment on that.
It's one of the all-time great rock and roll stories.
Oh, great.
So I should tell you. So somehow Jack and Yorma like heard about me playing, and I used to go over to their house where they all lived on Fulton Street in San Francisco.
Mhm.
It was like a mansion, and of the Greek revival style, and anyway, I used to go over there and jam, and they invited me to come down with them to LA, and they were recording a record down there, and they were considering me to be the drummer for Jefferson Airplane
Oh, wow.
way before Santana. So I flew down there on the airplane with it's like PSA, California, the beautiful outfits on the stewardesses, and
Right.
and it was what's his name, Buddy Miles was on that flight too. Anyway, so I go to the hotel which is the Tropicana, where Yorma and Jack are staying. I think I'm staying in the same room as Yorma. I think I don't know. I think so, because quite a few guests came over, and one of them was Jim Morrison.
Oh, wow.
Just came in, and then another one was Eric Clapton, who came with a cassette tape of a group he couldn't, just freaking out about, and they were called the Band.
Yeah, wow. What a trip.
And then David Crosby, I met when we went into the studio that night, and he came in with a song that the Byrds refused to do, and it was
Oh.
called Triad.
Oh, wow.
And they recorded it that night with Jefferson Airplane.
Mhm.
And that's the first time I met David. And then later on, David and I became really good friends, like in the San Francisco area. So there's all this background of that period then. But getting in Santana was, I called all my friends and I said, let's go and see if we can go sit in at this session at the Fillmore. And the Fillmore was, of course, Mecca for music.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
And so there was an event called Super Session with Stephen Stills and Al Cooper and Michael Bloomfield. And so I called my friends and I said, let's go see if we can sit in, what the hell? You never know. And everyone said, yeah, right. And then one guy said, no, oh yeah, that sounds great. Hold on one sec. And he came back and he said, no, I think I'll stay in tonight. So he'd obviously gone to check with his girlfriend, right?
Right.
I think that one call made me not get married till I was 35. Anyway, I went up by myself. Long story short, I walked right up to Michael Bloomfield before I got scared not to. I pulled on his pants, like he's up on the stage, and I said, "Hey man, I'm a drummer. Do you think I could sit in?" And I'm just waiting for him to kind of, nudge me away with his foot, you know what I mean, like kick me away.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh man, drummer's a really nice guy. Let me ask him." And I was like, "Oh, now this I didn't expect."
And now you're on the spot. Now you got
because I was just going to make sure that at least I tried,
right.
but didn't really believe it would happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it happened, and after that, I was backstage at the Fillmore, which is a whole nother thing. That was a big deal. And the manager and the bass player from Santana were there, and they said they approached me and said, "We heard you playing, and we really liked it. We're thinking of getting a new drummer in the band." And I was already a fan of Santana, and they were pretty big in the Bay Area. They didn't have a record out or anything. At any rate, I didn't hear from them, but some months later, like maybe 8 months later, I walked into a recording studio in San Mateo, California, which is in between where I lived in Redwood City and they were in San Francisco. And so I used to go there, hustle free studio time. And as I'm walking in, the original drummer of Santana walked out. We literally passed each other in the doorway.
Oh, wow.
Seriously.
Wow.
And so I went in the studio, and then some of the guys remembered me from that night. And they asked me, do you want to play? Do you want to jam? And I said, sure. And we did. We did for a long time. And then they took me into a room on the side and they asked me if I wanted to join the band.
Oh, wow.
Just like that. Right.
Wow.
And so they followed me home to my parents' house, and I went in and I woke up my folks and said, okay, see you later. And
really? Just like that?
Basically, I mean, this is already after I'd moved out, come back in. They knew I was music. It was going to happen. And I wouldn't go if I didn't think.
Yeah. And were they supportive? Were they like with you on all this?
They were so with me, man. It's just unbelievable. I mean, I was so young and they let me do so much. It's like, I wouldn't do that,
Yeah. I had crazy parents too. My parents were extremely supportive, and I toured for the first time at 15. And when I think back, I can't believe how crazy they were to let me go do that. It's just insane. But that's wonderful that they were there for you. So you went, you packed up your pajamas, got the teddy bear, your drumsticks, and you're out of there.
Right. And so I took my place on the couch up where they lived. We drove up together up to the Mission District, and they all lived together except for David Brown, the bass player, lived with a piano player named Alberto Gianquinto, who played on a lot of the Santana records, but he played with James Cotton. And he was a serious white Black Panther, you know what I mean? And a badass player. But he was literally Gunn's Black Panther, even though he's white.
Yeah.
It's so weird. So, I'm in this situation, and that's when I said I realized this ain't no hippie love thing.
Yeah.
This is like, yeah.
Like you said, like a street gang, weapons or music.
Yeah.
Just amazing. For those of you who haven't seen the beginning of this interview, we're here talking with Michael Shrieve, legendary drummer and musician. Let's just say that there would be no Black Magic Woman with Santana without Michael Shrieve. That must be exciting to play, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But the new album that Michael has out is just phenomenal. Stephen, actually, I'm going to put up Steve's comment. He mentions that Dad, meaning me, that's Steve, our producer, my son, says, we've talked about how the album is very ethereal feel throughout. It's very ethereal. And he also says something about what we were talking about earlier when it comes to runtime. Sometimes longer runtime benefits some, but other times a shorter runtime is enough to do the trick. I think a lot got done within the runtime of this album. It's not even 40 minutes long, and it's just a tremendous body of music, not based on length, but on breadth, if you will. And amazing musicians. The one word I have to describe it, and Steve, I like Steve's word for it that we talked about, ethereal. To me, it's so enchanting. And it also begs the question, have you ever, and I'm sorry I don't know this part about your history if you've done this, but have you ever, or would you say yes to doing a movie soundtrack? Because that's one of the first things that hit me in the face with the music on this. Have you done that?
I have done it. I've done a TV, not much, because But I did do with Patrick Gleason like a movie called what's the name of it? It was with the director Curtis Hanson,
Mm,
who did like L.A. Confidential and
yeah.
some great films, and Patrick and I did one together, and I did a TV thing for him as well. But I'm not that kind of skilled composer, and that I can like compose to on demand.
Right,
Like
right.
be ready by tomorrow. I mean,
But,
I wish I was. I really respect those kind of people, but
but if
I'm
someone came to you and said, we're doing a film and it's not coming out for 20 years.
of course, you know, I mean, I present them with all kinds of ideas. I would,
Right.
I
Yeah.
would, it would be a joy to do. I know this sounds like cinematic music. I know it,
Yeah.
and I'm more and more getting into that anyway. Like
Oh,
for
here you
me,
go. Bedroom window.
bedroom window, Jim
Yeah.
McCarthy.
Thanks,
Hi,
Jim.
Jim.
Bedroom window.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks
bedroom
so much.
window. And so I think that the way I'm going to make music in the future is going to be completely different than in the way in the past.
Mhm.
I want to put together music, and I don't have to be everything on it, but I'd like to be almost like like make records of original music, but also be a curator in some ways. It's
Like a musical director role to get
yeah,
things.
like just make beautiful experiences musically.
Yeah. Well, here's
Um,
another one from Jim. Children of Times Square.
yes, that's right. That's the TV one. Yeah, and
Cool. Interesting. And
yeah,
folks, the link to this album, if you want to buy it, just came out on the 24th. It's still fresh. You can unwrap this. It'll freshen the aroma of your home. It's so fresh. The link is in the text of the post. So check it out. But going back, Michael, like Danielle says, you mentioned, of course, we all know you brought Black Magic Woman to Santana. She asked, what's the energy like playing that? Like, if you in the last however many years, did that ever get old? Or is it still like wow, we did this? Is it
yeah.
still one of your babies, if you will?
Well, I mean, I think what we did, what we brought to that tune, aside from what Peter Green did, when Peter Green did it with Fleetwood Mac.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, that's what I heard, and I brought that to Greg Raleigh, and I said, I think you'd be really good singing this song, you know.
Yeah.
So, but the arrangement that we came up with is, I think, holds up over time. It's just
Oh,
brilliant.
yeah.
And so,
Absolutely.
because of that arrangement and the way Carlos plays, he's making melodies that are etched in stone. You know,
Yeah.
he's not
Yeah.
just blowing here and there, and so everything turns out to be classic.
Yeah.
There's no fluff really,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
so I think I'm proud of the arrangement. I'm proud, you know, the way I played it is different than when Mick Fleetwood played it, and it was
Mhm.
perfect for the band. And so I'm proud of that particular piece of music. I'm just not so great at constantly playing all those pieces of music. Like every night. I don't think I could do that. So, um, I just there's so much new stuff I want to do. And Carlos is doing that anyway. Greg does that too. I
Yeah.
mean, if I were to do anything, the thing would be to do Caravanserai and Borboleta,
Yeah.
those things. Excuse me one sec.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sorry.
Tell us about the Glass Menagerie experience.
Oh, that was nothing. It was just a little band I had back in high school.
Mhm. What kind of gigs were you doing? How would you describe to the music to those who might not be familiar?
Sorry,
That's okay.
I triggered something.
The groove doesn't stop with Michael Shrieve.
Wow, it sounds great. It's Miles.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but who's doing it? I've got another computer here. I think it's coming from there.
It's taking over.
Let me take a look.
Okay, no worries. Take your time. Yeah, that smile's all right. A lot of people don't know this, but not only Lenny White, but Billy Cobham played with Miles when they were
Yeah,
very, very young. Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. What kind of music were you doing in the Glass Menagerie? And were you doing gigs? And did you record anything that you might still have on
I
any
think there's
sort of
something out
reel?
there. I did a recent search, even trying to use AI and stuff, but
Yeah.
I didn't have any success yet. But there's some 45 out there somewhere, and so
Oh, wow.
I'll keep that because I'm curious. But basically, it was folk rock.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in high school and I was learning. I was into rock and roll, but I had a couple of friends in the high school that were showing me kind of where the music in San Francisco is coming from, and it's
Mm-hmm.
coming from folk music. And so
Right.
they showed me like where Richie Havens got this, and Jefferson Airplane, and Grateful Dead, and I realized, oh man! So I got into folk music
Mm-hmm.
and songs of that sort of thing. And so the Glass Menagerie was some kind of reflection of that time. I don't even know what we sounded like. I don't even remember, but I'd be very much curious to hear something. So,
That's
but I
cool.
assume it was folk rock. I mean,
Yeah.
I was into the Byrds, and I was into Jefferson Airplane, and I was into you know um, Judy Henske. I mean,
Oh, wow.
Richie
Yeah.
Havens, some serious like folk people. I even met with the guy just I kind of as a teenager. I guess I was pretty like I was a hustler, and so I met with what's his name who started um, the record company in the Bay Area that started doing all the serious folk music. And I'm forgetting his name and I'm forgetting the label, but it became like where the Doors, that label, they
Yeah.
were on it, and all kinds of people. Anyway, I was out there selling, I think, like Glass Menagerie or trying to get something going on, you know.
That's cool. Um, Two quick questions for you. One is because I want to make sure we end on time so we can put this on Instagram. It's got to be an hour or less. But first question is there something that you learned from the Santana experience? And let's throw Bill Graham in there for that matter. Is there something you learned that you carried through the rest of your career from that experience?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that was like a band that worked hard, rehearsed hard, you know, for being coming up in that hippies kind of vibe. Um, we would rehearse all day. I mean, by the time I got to them, they had management, and you were getting paid a salary, and
Mm-hmm.
they took care of your musicians union, which I felt like I'd just taken 3 years to save up to join,
Oh,
and
wow.
so they were like a professional outfit, you
Strong
know,
work ethic.
and every day you work all day. You go into
Yeah.
a place and you play and you rehearse and you just do grooves and you try to make songs, and then after that we could go to the Fillmore and watch whatever was happening there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was
That's
very
cool.
cool. And
From
so
my,
the other
yeah.
thing that I took from that band was just the discipline, and also like going, really going for ideas that you might have that were different than what other people were doing. And then Carlos and I had a very special musical relationship, and I always carry that because there's probably still nobody in my life that I've met that I haven't shared as much variety of music with. You
Oh,
know,
wow. That's cool.
we are both kind of like seekers of like, what do you got?
Yeah.
I mean, every week we send each other stuff. You know,
How neat. That is special. So, for my last question, and thank you again for spending so much time with us. Last question. This is the Michael Shrieve Fun Fact segment. And how this works is this: please give us a peek behind the curtain and tell us what you like to do when you're not recording, writing, producing, playing around on the drums, performing. When you're totally away from music, what do you like to do?
Well, the truth is, I like to watch good films or now series that are
Mhm.
really intelligent, and I love to read. So, and then the other thing I've done in the last 2 years is I'm completely into AI art.
Interesting.
And so I'm really into it. And so I've been doing a lot of stuff on my Bandcamp page. I've been putting out music that's like I recorded 30 years ago, really experimental stuff, and putting them out on my Bandcamp page, which is Michael Shrieve Bandcamp, and creating the album covers for each of those releases,
Oh, neat.
creating compilations of my past albums into new ways for people to listen to them. And yeah, and so I'm starting I'm going to open a shop like for my AI stuff, and
Wow.
it's going to be a Shopify.
That is cool. How
It's going to be a
interesting.
lifestyle, like clothing, like prints, shoes, like with my art on it.
Cool. Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. And before we go, because I didn't see this before, I'm going to ask you to please, within 60 seconds, if you could answer one more question from Jim McCarthy watching us on YouTube, who says, can you ask Mike about Automatic Man? And I'll give you a 15-second warning when you're getting close by shouting the word Blurpenheimer.
Automatic Man was a band that I started in the San Francisco Bay Area around 1974, 75 with the prodigy keyboard player Todd Cochran, who was known as Baete in those times.
Yeah.
He was kind of a visionary, and I had some ideas to make some kind of band that was like rock, but like deep funk too. And then we put a band together with Pat Thrall on guitar and a number of bass players, Donnie Harvey being the one that most people know and that we spent most time with. We did a brilliant album in London for Island Records. It was the same period of time, the same year that I was there with Somi Yamashita and Steve Winwood doing Go.
Cool.
And so it was very fruitful. It's an album that we're all still proud of. And we are discussing to add more, to do a re-release and add more material, not necessarily do a remix, although Pat Thrall wants to do it, but to re-release it and put it back out there again.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for the question, Jim. Michael, please hang on the line with me after we say goodbye. I appreciate it so much. And folks, thank you so much for joining Michael Shrieve and myself here on Drum Talk TV. First time we've ever had him on, and I'm personally thrilled because I've been such a big fan.
So get Lenny White and myself on together.
We'll do that. I'll talk to Lenny about that Saturday, and we'll definitely.
Actually, what you should do is have all the stick people on together.
Let's do that. We'll do that. We'll coordinate that for sure. Thanks for offering that. And get Michael's new album. The link is in the post. Just get it. Stop what you're doing. Don't tank. Get real. Keep it real. And enjoy Mike's new music. It's amazing. Thanks, everybody.